Okay, this is part 2 of the test. 14. I really want you to look at the number of eggs per clutch, which is 1,000 to 5,000. So let's look at the question. Why does the ability to lay 1,000 to 5,000 eggs increase the fitness of the species? Is it A, it increases opportunity for offspring to compete for limited resources, so they're all going to be competing for food? B, it increases the probability that some offspring will survive long enough to reproduce, so they will last longer so that they can have babies themselves. Or D, it increases the chances of recombinations of alleles, leading to genetic drift in the population. Number 15. The adaptation that allows some of these animals to run fast would be an example of natural selection if it what? So look at your graph. You have the running speed of the predator and the prey. And if you notice, the prey that live are the ones that can outrun the predator. So how would this be an example of natural selection? Would it be A, survive and undergo mutations in their DNA? C, produce offsprings that run at average speeds? Or D, reproduce and increase frequencies of their genes in the population? Number 16. You have the quiver tree, and it grows in the desert around the southern Africa. In recent decades, average temperatures have been rising in South Africa. Scientists predict that this warm trend will continue. Quiver trees in the hottest parts of the range near the equator are dying, but quiver trees in the higher elevations in the parts of the range that are further from the equator are growing and reproducing. In other words, where it's hot, they're dying. Where it's cooler, they're reproducing. And in the southern Africa, it's hot. Which of these best explains what happens to the quiver tree population in southern Africa? Is it A, individual quiver trees are unable to adjust to the rising temperature and only those in cooler parts of the range will survive? C, individual quiver trees can quickly adapt to rising temperatures. Individual trees will change their methods of speed dispersal in cooler parts of the range. Or D, the quiver tree species will survive by producing offspring suited for the warmer temperatures. Number 17. In the 1940s, scientist J.B.S. Haldane linked many human red blood cell disorders with the tropical regions where malaria occurred. Haldane hypothesized that the widespread presence of these red blood cells disorders, as well as traits that protect individuals from malaria, were the results of natural selection. Haldane's hypothesis was later confirmed by the research of A.C. Allison. The resistance to malaria carried by individuals in the area where malaria is widespread is a result of what? B, the individual genetic composition? C, antibiotic medication? Or D, the individual behavior in avoiding those with infections? So in other words, guys, their blood was a little different, therefore they were resistant to it. They didn't get malaria because their blood was different. How did that happen? 18, look at the graph. Which statement is best supported by these data? And this graph is a record of the fossil tracks that were found of the reptiles. Is it A, competition for food and shelter among reptile species was very low during the Triassic period? B, a great extinction occurred during the Jurassic period? Or D, reptile adapted to a terrestrial environment during the Cretaceous period? 19. Common baboons live in the savanna in breeding groups called troops. While females tend to stay with the troop, younger or less dominant males may leave and join neighboring troops, so they go to other monkey populations. Which of these is a likely outcome of the movement of the young males? So they're going and finding females that are not part of their family. Is it A, gene flow occurs between populations? C, relative genotype frequencies reach a constant state? Or D, intermediate phenotypes increase in the species? number 20. 20 is like the graph that we did yesterday where we highlighted which ones were closest to humans. So you'll need to look at that and look at the different names and try to conclude which ones are related to whom. So I'll let you just look at number 20. Okay, pause it and then go to 21. After examining the fossil records, scientists have determined that scorpions today are much smaller than their extinct ancestors. For example, the Jackalopterus ranae, a giant scorpion species that lived 255 million to 460 million years ago, was 2.5 meters long. Which of the following conclusions is supported by this information? A. Scorpions living today have increased their number since they first appeared. B. Scorpions in the fossil records are smaller than their descendants are. Or C. Scorpions have changed as a result of natural selection. Look at 22. I want you to look at the bacteria. What is the cell doing to the bacteria? Now, which theory is represented in this diagram? Is it A, the theory that all living organisms are made of cells? B, the theory that all living organisms share the same basic genetic components? Or D, the theory that complex cells evolved after primitive cells engulfed bacterial cells that continued functioning? 23. Look at your green beetles and look at your brown beetles. If you'll notice your green beetles, in year 1, 2, and 3, there were 78, 83, and 77, so they stayed constant. In your brown beetles, their population started to decrease, 31, 29, then 28. Which statement about the beetles in this environment is best supported by the data? Is it A, green beetles are more fit for the environment than brown beetles? C, green beetles have a greater gene frequency among their population than brown beetles have? Or D, brown beetles have a shorter life cycle than green beetles? 24. If you notice, they have it backwards. They have the oldest at the top and the youngest on the bottom. And so usually it's the youngest on the top and the oldest on the bottom. Which statement provides the best evidence that the oldest, the Amblyoxytus, is the ancestor of the Basilsaurus? So the oldest is the ancestor of the youngest. Where's the evidence? How can we prove it? Is it A, homologous structures occur in each fossil? B, similar nitrogenous bases are found in the DNA of each fossil? Or C, the fossils were found in different locations? 25. Zoogeographic regions are characterized by the presence of specific groups of animals. These regions are determined by the taxonomic or phylogenetic relations of animals. The map shows a zoogeographic region proposed by the naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace. Look did you notice that I circled the key and put an arrow there? That line shows that there is a barrier that they can't cross. So now let's look at the question. The similarities of the organisms in which two area numbers above provide the best evidence for common ancestors between the organism in both locations. In other words, which two numbers does not have a barrier, a line that crosses them? Is it 1 and 2, 5 and 6, or 7 and 8? Okay, you guys, be sure and fill in your bubble sheet and turn in your test. And you can have a great weekend.